Hi, welcome to Cell Life Church's series entitled Relationships. Regardless of what we do and where we do it, people are involved, and people mean relationships. We are exploring the various relationships that we as humans face throughout our lifetimes. Last time we got to talk about marriage, and it was a lot of fun. We're looking at healthy versus unhealthy relationships, and then what God's role is in each one. Today we're going to discuss parent-child relationships, another near and dear subject to our hearts. We have children. We want to give you some examples of how God, as our Father, is a parent, as well as some practical examples of what we have practiced in our home. So, with that in mind, we would like you to just start right off with this discussion question. Pause the video and discuss in your groups around your tables, what does a healthy versus unhealthy parent-child relationship look like? Welcome back, and I hope you had some good discussion. I realize that first discussion question is really quick, but that's okay. It's that opportunity to discuss around your table wherever you're at. You know, as Kelly and I were preparing this, we thought of some unhealthy characteristics and some healthy characteristics of parent-child relationships. And here's a couple of unhealthy ones that we came up with was yelling to get a point across.
You know, and that can go either way. Either the child is yelling at the parent, or the parents yelling, "Did you hear me?" Yeah, you know, and we've all seen the yelling families, and somehow, in some way, for some folks that works, but not exactly sure that's the best healthy way to communicate. You know, another unhealthy characteristic is ignoring, you know, from a parent's perspective, ignoring a child's poor behavior. You know, and from a child's perspective, having a parent that ignores the child completely. You know, when children need attention, they need that interaction. Right, and ignoring the child when the child does a good behavior.
Right, yeah.
That's just as detrimental.
Exactly, yeah.
Also.
So kind of ignoring each other. So those are some unhealthy characteristics of parent-child relationships. Yeah, here's a couple healthy characteristics, though. Having boundaries and both sides working within those boundaries. Boundaries are an important thing regardless of the relationship, but really when it comes to parent-child relationships, boundaries are a very important thing. Another very healthy characteristic, and you can tell the families that have this characteristic, they have open communication.
Right.
I love the fact, I love seeing when, especially teenagers, can go to parents and talk to them about anything.
Right.
That is such a huge thing. And so, Kelly's going to share a couple of biblical examples of unhealthy and healthy relationships.
Right. You know, looking through the Bible, there's so many different examples that we can use. And so we actually decided to use two examples from one family.
Right.
And so the first example we're going to look at is David and his son Absalom. And this is kind of a lengthy story, and you can look at this relationship in the chapters of 2 Samuel 13 through 19. And that's where we learn about who Absalom is. And it's kind of an interesting story there. Absalom's half-brother Ammon had raped Absalom's sister, causing anger and bitterness to stew in his heart for 2 years. And after that had...
Well, and that is a natural response to be angry about something like that.
Right.
So
Absolutely. It's a natural response. But he didn't deal with his anger.
Exactly.
He didn't, it just, the Bible said, you know, he grew angry over time, you know, and so he didn't deal with that injustice that happened. And what he ended up doing is murdering his brother.
Yeah.
And so Absalom then fled his father's kingdom, David's kingdom, only to return again in 3 years, but plotting to take his father's throne. Yeah. So we're seeing some, you know, family turmoil here going on. And we're going to read an example of Absalom's deceit, the swelling of his heart, this rebelliousness that had come up in 2 Samuel 15, starting in verse 1. It says, in the course of time, Absalom provided himself with a chariot and horses, and with 50 men to run ahead of him. He would get up early and stand at the side of the road leading to the city gate. Whenever anyone came with a complaint to be placed before the king for a decision, in other words, people were standing in line to go to Absalom's dad, David, to get a decision.
Right.
And so Absalom, he's going to steal these people. It says Absalom would call out to him, "What town are you from?" He would answer, "Your servant is from one of the tribes of Israel." Then Absalom would say to him, "Look, your claims are valid and proper, but there is no representative of the king to hear you." And Absalom would add, "If only I were appointed judge in the land, then everyone who has a complaint or case would come to me, and I would see that they receive justice." Also, whenever anyone approached him to bow down before him, Absalom would reach out his hand, take hold of him, and kiss him. Verse 6, Absalom behaved in this way toward all the Israelites who came to the king asking for justice. And so he stole the hearts of the people of Israel.
Wow.
You know, this is a great example of undermining authority.
Yes, it really is. But we're not talking about authority today. But
no,
yeah,
well, you have an apparent relationship.
Sure, that's true.
We
that is true.
See that, and so here it is. Absalom, conniving and getting together, I'm going to steal the hearts of these people and overtake my dad's throne. And so obviously this is a very unhealthy relationship between him and David.
It's very, very, very disrespectful.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yes, and selfish.
Yeah.
But let's look at a good example.
Yes.
David's family. Back in the biblical times, it's very common for people to have many children. And so another child is Solomon that David had with Bathsheba. And David had several children, but God appointed Solomon to be his successor.
Yes.
And David grew old. He was still ruling the kingdom. And before he died, he had Solomon anointed king before he died.
Yeah.
And we're going to look at a scripture, passage of scripture that really is a great commentary or charge that David gives to his son before he dies. He's going to give him some instructions, and we read that in 1 Kings 2, verses 1 through 4. It says, "When the time drew near for David to die, he gave a charge to Solomon his son. 'I'm about to go the way of all the earth,' he said, 'so be strong. Act like a man and observe what the Lord your God requires. Walk in obedience to him and keep his decrees and commands, his laws and regulations, as written in the law of Moses. Do this so that you may prosper in all you do and wherever you go, and that the Lord may keep his promise to me. If your descendants watch how they live, and if they walk faithfully before me, with all their heart and soul, you will never fail to have a successor on the throne of Israel.'" This is a great example of a healthy relationship. David is getting ready to die. These are very well could have been his last words, maybe not, but definitely towards the end of his life. And he's saying, hey, you know what? If you want to be successful in life, you've got to learn from me. Follow the Lord. Give him your heart. And us as Christian parents, that's our desire for our children. Fall in love with Jesus. Get to know him. Allow him to direct your path. And so that's what David is saying. And we believe that every healthy relationship requires selflessness, respect, and communication.
Right, exactly.
And looking at both examples of the relationships, and David and Absalom's relationship, these three elements, they don't exist.
Yeah, none of them were there.
None of them were there, exactly. And if those elements had been there, so much heartache could have been not happened.
Yeah, it could have been averted.
Exactly. And so, but then we look at David and Solomon's relationship, and we see that. We see selflessness. We see respect. We see communication demonstrated in David taking action to have his son anointed as king, and then instilling in him to follow God with all of his heart.
Yes.
And so, in your groups, let's discuss this. Let's discuss these three elements of a relationship. How does selflessness, respect, and communication apply in your parent-child relationship?
Well, welcome back. When Kelly and I were talking this through and talking about the subject, we talked about our personal application, much like what you were doing there. We're talking about our personal application and how we cultivate the relationship with our children, and I just want to hit those three keys that we talked about, those three things that we need for any relationship. And if you've seen any of the prior videos, it's these three key elements are necessary in any healthy relationship. First one is selflessness. With us and our children, we put our desires aside to meet the needs of our kids. And I think a lot of parents do that. Maybe it doesn't happen as much as it used to, but a lot of parents do that. But our children are quick to do the very same thing for us. It's absolutely amazing, because we try to be as a family unit as selfless as possible. We make it a priority to play together. Even it's not about me; it's about the whole family. And another key element: respect. We allow the kids to make decisions.
Absolutely.
That can be scary. And, we let them have input and share opinions. We talk and pray through big decisions together. See, we are a team. We all have a voice and an opportunity to be heard. When we were purchasing a home last year, the four of us sat down and talked it through. And we talked about the houses that we looked at, and the children came with us and looked at houses even. And we prayed together about houses, things like that. So we are a team, and we keep that. We respect each other's voice and opinion, no matter how, sometimes you get a really small one and it may sound silly, their opinion or things, or you get an older one and who really doesn't care or whatever it is. It's still, we give voice to that, and we give ear to voices.
And, we're not quick to dismiss.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And that's so important, because I think in the different stage that you have with your children, little and older, sometimes the ideas or even, some of the things they come up with, you're thinking mentally, you're just that would never work or whatever, But we hear those out,
right?
And we're respectful to
or ooh, that'll make a great Facebook post. So watch our Facebook feeds. It can be interesting sometimes. Yeah, the third key element, absolutely necessary for any relationship, and especially in a parent-child relationship, communication. We've talked about that already, kind of in the ways we talked about selflessness and respect. But communication, we allow our kids to talk about anything. We make it safe for them to talk to us. Our children know that they can come ask us any question. Right. And they know that we can bring up any topic, and they're willing to answer anything. And
I would say, too, that as you instill that in your children, as they grow older, it still has an effect.
Yes.
When I was growing up, my parents were very open, and especially my mom. She always said, if you have any questions, you come to me. She said, sometimes you're going to hear things at school that other kids know about and you don't know about, or you're going to hear a slang word or whatever. She says, I want you to come and bring it to me, and let's talk those things through. And to this day, my mom is one of my best friends. We still have that open communication, and it was instilled in me when I was young.
Yeah. And we are doing the same thing with our children, and I encourage you to do the same with your children. And ultimately, and with all these discussions we're doing, ultimately with our children, our relationship with our children is centered on God.
Absolutely.
You know, aside from church meetings and things like that, we meet as a family for devotions. We meet as a family to pray. We come together as a family to serve together. We do these things as a family. We approach the Lord as a family. Because we are a team. We are a team that the Lord put together. You know, the Lord joined the two of us in marriage and then used us to create our two children here. And so it's an amazing team that we are, and we just absolutely love it. And so God is the center of our whole family relationship. And I think that's the real super key for it. So which leads to the next discussion question. We would like you to pause the video and talk about. We would like you to discuss God's role in your parent-child relationships and how it can be improved. Go ahead and discuss that and come on back. Welcome back. And God's role and how you can improve that in your parent-child relationships. That's a discussion. And sometimes it can be a little bit of a touchy discussion, almost as touchy as the marriage discussions. But, you know, it's nothing to be ashamed of or afraid of or anything else. And I hope you are gathered together with people that you do trust and are true brothers and sisters in the Lord, and can not only help you be accountable, but also can help lift you up and encourage you as well. But you know, when we look at God's role in a parent-child relationship, there are some real key things that we read in the Bible, and the Apostle Paul gave us some great wisdom in the book of Ephesians. And the very first thing he tells us is not to exasperate our children. He says, Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4 says this: "Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord." You know, that exasperate, that's a great word. I like the word. But it means to irritate or to provoke. You know, you'll see in some things. Yeah, they're sitting there, poking and needling, and and of course, there's always good, clean fun, and that is always fun. There's nothing wrong with joking. We laugh a lot in our family, and everyone knows at some point in time they're going to be the subject of a joke. It's just the way it is, but it's always good-natured. It's always in love and fun, and it gets turned right back around on you like that. And so, but you know, don't irritate your children. Don't provoke your children. Don't needle them. It's mean-spirited. Right. And it's not.
Don't do something to get a rise out of it.
Yeah.
You know you're going to get a reaction if you do this, or you're going to say this and you're going to get a reaction. Don't do it.
Right, yeah. I mean, we all have buttons.
Right.
That we don't like to be pushed, and yet sometimes you see that happen in parent-child relationships on purpose. And so that's what Paul's saying here is don't exasperate or irritate or provoke your children, but bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. You know, so that's obviously for specifically fathers, but fathers and mothers, parents. But the flip side is every bit as important. Children, respect your parents. Ephesians chapter 6, again, verses 1 through 3. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on the earth. That's huge, friends. And so, so Paul, he goes from speaking to parents, now speaking to children, to obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. To honor your mother and father. I like how he says, obey your parents in the Lord, because your parents can tell you could have ungodly parents. If we have some teenagers, some young people that are watching, you can have some ungodly parents or ungodly authority in your life that's telling you to do things that you shouldn't be doing. That's not obeying in the Lord. You can easily walk away from that. It is the right thing to do. But obeying your parents in the Lord and honoring your father and mother, the first commandment with a promise. Yes. That's amazing. And see, here's the thing. It's a two-way relationship. It takes parents not only not exasperating their children, not only poking and provoking them, but really honoring the children as well. And the flip side, children, you should honor your mother and father. You should, you need to listen to them and obey them in the Lord. But you know what? Don't provoke them either.
Right.
It becomes this he said she. It becomes this and that kind of a thing, and nobody likes that. And the whole thing crumbles like that.
And I think honoring our parents too comes into play, especially when our parents get older. And there's so many ways to show honor to them. I think of a personal example is my grandparents moved onto our property when I was in high school, and my parents took care of them up until they died. And that was a way for my parents to show honor to them, and taking care of them. And so many times we're quick to ignore our parents or think they got all figured out or whatever once they're older. And boy, that the Bible just said it's the first command with a promise.
Right, exactly. And we're never released from that.
Right.
We're never released, and we're readying ourselves to do the very same thing with your parents. And it's not going to be long, and they're going to be with us and living with us. And I look forward to that day. And that is a wonderful way to honor your folks. And we look forward to that. It's going to be a great day of celebration. And so, but it is a two-way relationship, and as all relationships. But our relationship with God is the ultimate example of a parent-child relationship. Absolutely. Because you can have somebody who's the best parents in the world, and you can have the best children in the world, and it still doesn't hold a candle to the example that Jesus gives of God the Father. We read in Matthew chapter 7, verses 9 through 12, Jesus is speaking here. Which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? If you then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? So in everything do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets. We've talked about the first and greatest commandment and the second, as Jesus said in some other discussion videos and things. Very important. And I love how Jesus is wrapping these two things together right here. Because not only is he saying, we as parents, we know how to give our children good gifts and being of the world. And, when he says, even though you are evil, he doesn't mean evil as of Satan, but even, we're in this world. We're not in the presence of God yet. And we're doing our level best, and we're trusting God for all of his grace and his mercy and his forgiveness, but we're not perfect. We're of this world, and that's what Jesus is saying by though you are evil. But we know how to give our children good gifts. If my son comes to me and says he's hungry, can I have a sandwich? I don't give him a rock. That's what Jesus is saying. A rock will fill you up. But I don't do that. If your child comes and asks for a fish or something, you don't give them a snake. It's just crazy. We know better than that. Jesus tells us, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? When we say yes to Jesus and we are adopted into the family of God, we become children of the Most High God. He knows how to give the best gifts.
Exactly.
He knows how to just give us all that we desire in him. It's just an amazing thing. And because he wants to lavish us. He wants to love on us. He wants, like the prodigal father and the prodigal son, he wants to lavish us with everything. And Jesus wraps it up. So in everything do to others what you would have them do to you. And with every relationship, I think we could put that piece into every one of these relationship videos. In everything do to others what you would have them do to you, because that's what sums up the law and the prophets. Not only do I treat my wife the way I would like her to treat me, we need to treat our children the way we want our children to treat us. And our children are amazing students of us. Your children are amazing students of you as parents. We wonder where children pick things up at. They pick them up from us. They pick it up from you. And so as you're looking at that and you're seeing behaviors in your children that you might not like, yes, there are other influences in your children's lives, but if you're having an active role in your child's life and your child's having behavior that you're wondering about, start looking in the mirror probably, because what we want to do is treat them the way we want to be treated. And guess what? We are the best influence in our children's lives.
Right.
And you know, our children can be some of the best influence in our lives.
Absolutely.
Our children, I know our children have held me accountable on some things sometimes, and you know, they ask a question or they point something out, and the perspective of a child is so innocent. It's so pure. It's just absolutely amazing. And yes, sometimes they come up with some really harebrained kind of thing that you just got to Facebook. But you know, they really do. They have an amazing perspective. And so treat them the way you want to be treated, and teach them to treat you the way you want to be treated.
Right. Absolutely. You know, thank you so much for joining us today. I really hope that you were encouraged by the examples out of the Bible, out of our personal stories. And, you know, parenting is something that you don't have to go with alone, and treating your parents, you know, we need to honor them. There's just so much we can go on and talk about. But we pray that this discussion has caused you to evaluate your relationships with your parents and your children, and to see how you can have God as a bigger role, take a bigger role in those. We would love to hear from you.
Yes.
And we would invite you to visit our website, our YouTube channel. You can connect with us on Facebook. We just are so thankful that you would take the time out and join us for these discussions. And we invite you to join us next time as we discuss the sibling relationships.
Bye-bye.